started.
Are you living it up on Twitch today?
Oh, we are live. We are live right now.
We are right now?
Well, just now. I just hit the button.
Oh.
I just hit the button.
I was like, I'll host you.
Oops.
Does that send out a going live notification?
It should.
You host somebody? That's hilarious. That'll be my first going live notification in a long time.
That's why, like, I even went and updated your exclamation point sauce thing today. Now it points to your Instagram and your YouTube.
Cool, thanks, man.
No problem.
Not even on my Twitch yet. It's not even on there. You're not live yet.
What? Shenanigans.
Still booting up.
Shenanigans. Absolute shenanigans. Chicanery. Buffoonery. All right. Yeah, dude. You got your coffee? What kind of coffee you drinking today? Any sort of special blend or just like pot coffee? And by pot coffee, I don't yeah, I was about to say I don't mean left-handed Chili's coffee.
I wish it was pot coffee.
Is that a thing? Like, not to get off topic immediately, but is that a thing?
It could be because THC is activated by heat. So in theory, it could be.
So well, I mean, I'm drinking tea, which I already know your opinions on us hot leaf water people, but
it's just leaves, dude.
Well, I mean, you're burning beans.
I didn't burn them. Starbucks burns them.
Oh boy.
You have a look at your screen capture.
Mm-hmm.
It has a purple bar on it above my head.
Donk. Fixed.
Got you.
I have fixed the sauce.
I've got you, dude. I've got you.
Oh,
I will protect the production value of this stream.
Oh, that's funny because you assume there's production value.
I have a very high emphasis on production value. I'll have you know, sir.
I know, which I think is hilarious that you agreed to come on this show that will A, never be edited. B, B, will never have, like, when it goes up on YouTube in a month, it will never have, like, intro screen. It will never have outro screen. There will be no teaser at the end saying, hey guys, it's Dr. Rhino. Thank you for liking and subscribing. We'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon and see me over on Twitch. Also, Mayabee's in the chat. Mayabee's here.
Mayabee, what up? Here, hold on. Let me host you.
And Hero's here.
How do I do that? Dude, I have not... Oh, host channel. There we go. I feel like I have officially forgotten Twitch things. Like, I have officially... It is out of my brain, and I have forgotten how to do things on Twitch.
How do you feel about that?
Oh God, is this like an intervention or a therapy?
No. Hold on. Let me just get the mic real close. Just how does that make you feel?
I would say weird.
That was loud. Loner in a crowd just popped over to subscribe with Prime. What up, Loner? Thank you so much. Wow, these two together, this is gonna get weird. It's always weird, dude. It's always weird.
Yeah. So yeah. Hey Rhino, sorry, I had to get my host set up, dude.
No worries.
I had to do it.
No worries at all.
I wonder if that's gonna just bring. I really don't know how that works. So if I say I'm hosting you, does that sends a notification there like, hey, this guy's live?
I'm pretty sure it does. Or at the very least, you're gonna show up in people's follower bars as live.
It's gonna be a very interesting surprise to people to find out.
Oh, it's
what the hell?
To be perfectly frank, it's gonna be like the ultimate cock tease for the entire Sauce Nation because they're gonna be like, oh, "It's happened!" Oh, it's just Rhino. Which I totally get. I would have the exact same reaction if I saw the Sauce's icon over in my little follow bar, and I was
like, yeah.
Oh.
I wonder if I can. Oh well, did the host pop up? By the way, did that work?
Let's see. Let's go to the Twitch. Let's do some science before the conversation even starts.
Yeah, dude, do it for science.
For science.
Content science. It's a super important thing that has to happen.
Mm-hmm. This is a very important part of the podcast, y'all.
This
Um,
is the part that should be edited, but Rhino doesn't do any editing.
nope. This is like I want the true authentic experience for everyone, and I'm not seeing it at least on mobile.
That's so weird, dude. Maybe
What does
my
hosting
account
even
is just
do?
like maybe it's non-host. I don't know, dude. I
Maybe
mean,
it's just a placebo thing, like the button at crosswalks.
right, right. It could be. I mean, that's so weird. I clicked host.
Coco Addy says he is hosting me. Okay, so I guess that
Oh,
means at least
all right. See, we did it. We did it.
non-mobile people can see that you're doing this. Thank you, Coco.
It worked.
You go,
It worked.
Glenn Coco.
And with that,
Yeah, this is when clap. And now we start. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my my shoulder. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Office Hours podcast, where Dr. Rhino attempts to be a podcaster. And with me is the inimitable, the fantastic, the five-headed, the grim doink master himself, the sauce painting. How you doing, buddy?
I am good. I am very good. I'm glad that you are doing your podcast, by the way. You said that you're attempting to be a podcaster. Do you want to know the secret to podcasting? Is literally you have to podcast. That's the secret.
Well, first things
So,
a podcaster should do is get the guest volume correct.
yeah, turn me up. Turn me up a little bit.
You've been turned. You have been
Turn
turned.
turn up, turn up, turn up, turn up, turn up. So the yeah, you said that you're attempting to be a podcaster. Well, sir, I will have you know that by podcasting, you are actively a podcaster. That's how that works.
I'm glad it's a participation trophy kind of activity.
Well, yeah, I suppose life in a lot of ways is a participation trophy sort of thing. Just doing it is like 90%. You know
Well,
what I mean?
and I mean, given the fact that some days just getting out of bed is hard enough, I think a participation trophy means a lot more in that circumstance. But one of the
Mhm.
things that because I want to dive right in because I know you told me right before we went live that you have some tasty opinions on some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
And I kind of want to kick it off with what I think is the most clickbaity title I've ever come up with: The Death of Grimdark.
I think it's a good talking point. I think it's an interesting conversation. I think it's a interesting um perspective on the style and in a lot of ways I would agree with it.
Because granted, I am insanely new to the painting scene
Right.
by comparison to people who've been doing it for decades, seen styles rise and fall. But even colloquially, and just kind of picking up from what people talk about, there was heavy metal,
Mhm.
and that was like the way to paint. That was the way everyone
Mhm.
like like the heavy edge highlights, really bright colors,
Mhm.
um, and then that kind of transitioned away to I don't know what, and then we then you started getting like some more like niche little fad painting styles, like synthwave, like we talked about yesterday, like the synthwave painting style, lots of bright fluorescent colors on models that normally you wouldn't expect that for that kind of like shock value factor.
Yeah.
And now we're in this Ink 28 grimdark phase where streaking grime and enamel grimes are being used, chipping mediums, rust effects, folks like yourself, calf, mini painting are doing incredible things with this
Mhm.
medium and really pushing this particular style. But like any style, it's going to end. Oh, hello, Duck Guts. What up, bruv?
Oi.
Oi, oi, oi. And then Sig Gnarly mentions oils, and oils being part of, or at least a heavily influencing part of the grimdark style. But
Yes.
I've been actually informed that oils have always kind of been there for mini painting. It's just they've
Mhm.
only grown in popularity recently.
Yes.
So, having said all of that, do you think that this style will, like any other style, fall out of favor? If so, how far? Like, it will always be here, or will it go become gauche?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. I've also not been a mini painter for very long either. Like in the grand scheme of things, and especially compared to other like larger content creators, other painters in general. Like I've been painting minis for a smidge over 3 years. And so very much like you, I don't know the entire massive background of what happened previous to that. Like I know that heavy metal style has existed and has been like a primary push style from Games Workshop because it is their box art style, right? And so their teaching technique to me is make it look like this on the box. And here's the paints you need to do it without teaching you the techniques. Without it's, I mean, Ninja did a tremendous video. Box art is a lie. Squidmar's done a tremendous video about it. I think it's called "This is the most important video I'll ever make" or something. That's super clickbaity, but it's all about volumetric lighting, and it's one of the best videos I've ever seen. And both of those videos basically are like, "Hey, Games Workshop is lying to you, and here's the techniques they're not teaching you, and this is why even if you could paint exactly as good as them, why it basically your stuff still would like if you could edge highlight as good as Games Workshop, why it would not look as good. Does that make sense? Like there's techniques that they don't teach you, and all that you really see is clean edge highlights and nice clean base coats. And it's like there's stuff happening behind the scenes with those paint jobs, specifically around volumetric lighting, that again they don't teach you. Very likely it's done with an airbrush.
Hmm.
Um, that is not being covered whatsoever. And so like that's my big beef with Games Workshop and the heavy metal style is number one, I don't think that you grow artistically whatsoever from copying a heavy metal painting style. I think that you are, if anything, just refining a detailed technique of painting. I don't think that you're learning the art side whatsoever. So they're not doing any favors to anybody with that technique. And so I think that the heavy metal style has been around and has been predominantly pushed by them because it's the best way to show off details on a model. That is true. Is edge highlights, specifically a shitload of them, very bright ones with multiple layers, shows off every single detail of a model. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Absolutely.
And they have the best models in the game. So those two are a marketing plan. It's not a style. It's not a painting technique. It's marketing. And like I think that we just need to be more honest with ourselves about what it is. And that's what it is. It was designed to sell models. It's slapped on a box, and a lot of people paint it and like it. And that's great. But it was designed to market products. And that's why it exists in the first place. And what's happened between then and where we find ourselves now, which is to a degree, I would say, yeah, the grim dark, I would not say is anywhere even remotely near the primary painting style out right now. But it's it's not the style, it's more popular than it's ever been, but, I mean, in comparison to the rest of the painting meta, it is still a very small percentage of creators, of painters, and I would say just in a general knowledge compared to things like heavy metal or box art or just, like, clean, well-painted minis is, like, abysmally tiny. I would think that it is at its absolute peak of growth right now. Like, it is growing so much, but I don't know. I don't think that it's that large of a style in comparison to everything else still, which is good and bad.
Yeah, that the way you phrased it like that it's growing, but maybe like my perspective on things is a bit skewed because folks like yourself, Calf, seeing you guys on Instagram and following creators like you has put more creators in the Ink 28 and that in the Grimdark painting style universe onto my feed. So that's more of what I see.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
coloring my opinions. But someone mentioned in chat that there is still, despite the fact that it is a popular style and it is growing in popularity, it still kind of gets this kind of gatekeepery hate, as I believe Ecstasy and Service said. Let me read this specifically. It is kind of odd how Grimdark has something of a bad reputation. People seem to call it, quote, easy, dirty, and doesn't look that good, kind of an odd form of gatekeeping.
Yes.
And like, I mean, it's the same way that, and I've brought this up to you 1,000 times. I've had someone tell me when I was first starting painting that um, real painters don't use dry brushing. Like competition painters don't do dry brushing. And
Right.
it's this idea that certain techniques or certain materials like enamel streaking grimes or oil paints is not the way that minis are supposed to be painted, and therefore you are like cutting corners and your stuff isn't as valid or as good. So I definitely could see that as being like an influence, but
Yeah, there's gatekeeping on both sides of grimdark, which is really interesting. And I guess this is going to be an interesting rabbit hole, but let's do it. I think the gatekeeping against grimdark is people who don't understand it. And and can't wrap their brain around it. And it is something that from the inside of Grimdark, it's a running joke on my Warhammer team. Like one of my absolute pet peeves is people just posting and saying, "Is this Grimdark?" And it's like, if you have to ask, it's not. And just accept that. And like, so I think that people get frustrated that they cannot understand the style of Grimdark, and then they start to form these just flat out bad opinions like it's dirty and doesn't look good. It's like, well, no, you just don't understand the style. And in my experience, the people who say that kind of thing are frustrated that they literally cannot paint it, and they're frustrated that when they try, people are like, yeah, I don't know, like they can't get that image across. They can't get the vibe portrayed correctly. And I think that people start to have like very I think that they process that different. I think that they turn to like a backlash mode almost to be like, well, this style's stupid, instead of like trying to be like, what is it about this? And I think that that's where some of that gatekeeping comes in. But on the other side of it too, I would say like, and I'm guilty of this, but in some ways, I'm not gonna like stop doing this. I would say I'm guilty of being an inside the circle gatekeeper to Grimdark. Like I'm very opinionated about what is and what isn't Grimdark. And I think that that can be intimidating to certain people. People will be like, especially like some of my close friends, like these are actually people that I actually play 40K with will be like, is this Grimdark? And I'm like, no, it's not. This is not. Like, I don't care what you think this is. This is not grim dark. And I think that people take that wrong. They're like, oh, this is gatekeeping. It's like, well, to a degree, yes, it is. But like, it's more of defining an expectation about what a model is supposed to look like versus saying like you're not able to do this. It's just like if I painted a model with an airbrush, right, a nice model, and I did all the base coats properly, I got in all the metal trim and everything good. But if I didn't do a single edge highlight, imagine if I posted and said, "Is this heavy metal style?" Like, people would then be like, "No, it's not." But there would be no argument about, like, that this is gatekeeping. People would just be like, "It's just not that style." And I think that the issue is that people, think that grimdark is X, Y, and Z to achieve the aesthetic, and it's really not. Like, there is some, like, X, some Y, some Z. Like, there are some things that fall into certain bubbles that if you do these, it'll likely outcome and look grimdark. But it's not it's it's learning a style. You know what I mean? And that's where I think as a grimdark creator, it gets frustrating to watch people just come in and be like, "Oh, is this grimdark? Oh, is this?" And like trying to act like they're painting grimdark and they're not. And it all comes down to not doing the research, not doing their homework as far as learning the techniques, the styles, the creators, what really works, what really doesn't, and are basically just slapping their own label on it. And it's causing a giant shift in the grimdark meta because we're seeing especially large content creators putting out grimdark content, and it's not. And it's a misunderstanding of what the style is, and the whole thing just gets very convoluted and weird quickly. um I don't know, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting thing, and I think in on both sides of the aisle, I think in all things, like I think that we should be a little bit more like understanding as a society, especially in the Warhammer hobby, about what the word gatekeeping even means. Um, but I think it's important to enforce and uphold what stylistic standards are, honestly. And I think that a lot of people completely misunderstand what grimdark even is and slap their own label on it. And then people from the grimdark scene are like, "This is not grimdark," and then they're like, "Oh, you're gatekeeping me. You're a gatekeeper." And it's like, no, there's just this just doesn't meet. You know what I mean? This just isn't the style. Like it's just not it. And so I think that it's hard to really. I've done my best, like with that PowerPoint presentation I gave,
Mhm.
to narrow down what the hell grimdark even is, you know? And like I've done it a lot. Like I've painted almost exclusively in the grimdark style for like 2 years, and I've experimented with many of the techniques and styles. I've really refined my own style. And I would say I personally feel very comfortable and confident in understanding what it is, being able to paint it, and consistently output content around grimdark. But
So,
some people just don't get it. And it's not like a feel bad. I don't want people to be like, "I don't know grim dark, so you're gatekeeping me." It's like, "No, I want everybody to get it, but you need to do your homework." Like, you need to understand what this style is before you just say, "This is it."
so in my case, I will freely admit that I do not, the only exposure I have to grimdark is what I have seen from
Yeah.
folks like yourself, and Calf and you are my two biggest grimdark influences.
Yeah.
And what I see, like when the same way that when you're in like an art history class or something in college or high school or wherever for fun online, it's when you're defining a style, it's not gatekeeping to say that impressionism is not and expressionism are not the same thing. You don't hold up a Monet and say this is expressionist. It's not. It's impressionist for X, Y, and Z reasons. So I like to break down like grimdark, like you kind of did in your PowerPoint, but I go even simpler, and I maybe even broad stroking it to the point where you wouldn't agree. But when I look at a model, muted colors,
Mhm.
chipping, and like flaking effects, or at least the look of an effect to show like weathering. So let's make it that simple: weathering, grime, muted colors, and kind of a morose feel. Like these are not heroic, like pristine people like standing atop a hill in victory. These are like in the trenches, muddy, gross, war is disgusting kind of vibe. That's how I
Mhm.
look at it. Whereas my style, the way I paint, I would almost call it prim dark, not grim dark, prim dark, because they are clean colors, clean
Right.
blends with no chipping, but I use um I use streaking grime to mute everything down, and then I use OSL to give me that kind of spooky vibe. I guess is like the that feel, that kind of like ominous feel, especially with my Custodes. Dark green, bright pop of orange. That's it. And
Mhm.
so even by your definition, I don't even think what I do is grimdark.
I would say it is, but well, I mean, when you just list techniques, it's hard to say, right? It's like the techniques to paint grim dark. It's like a breadcrumb trail. It's like, okay, if you do this, you're starting the trail down the grim dark path, right? Like techniques in a row is what, in a lot of cases, can achieve a grim dark aesthetic. But just doing one of those, or even a series of those, doesn't necessarily mean that's the path, right? There could be breadcrumbs on multiple trails, and so it's like, if you really are thinking about doing grim dark and like you're narrowing it down to just those couple techniques, I think that those are great techniques to explore. But I've seen your work, especially like your late Custodes work. All the techniques you just listed are employed on those, and I would say that they've definitely got a grim dark aesthetic to them. And like I think that it's doing these techniques does not equal grim dark, but doing these techniques can equal grimdark. And like maybe that's the best way to describe it, is like it's really not just a bucket like, oh, I use streaking grime so it's grimdark. Well, yes and no. Um but there's certain things that just really like push the direction. You know what I mean? And like again, it just comes down to like how I would define grimdark is like I've been trying to get even more specific about it, and to me it's just the word hopeless right now. That's it. Like something that just feels completely hopeless. Like when you think about this miniature, you're like all hope is lost on this miniature in the setting, and it's um if you can portray that emotion, I think that you'll really capture the aesthetic, and it will help guide some of your artistic choices.
Well, I mean, like it's right there in like the mission statement of 40K: in the grim darkness of the far-flung future of the 41st millennium, there is only war. That is not a happy statement.
No. No, it's
So
really not.
why you again? It's the whole like seeing a model like victoriously like sticking a banner pole into the top of a hill and looking like all, basically whenever I think of a model that or even just an army in the 40K universe that are portrayed in a manner that just gives me the vibes. And it's not ultramarines, it's blood angels, because they're described as being hyper pretty. And they're just super pretty and gorgeous, and they like their armor is all like this bright red, and it just seems so contradictory to my
Mm-hmm.
mind of the aesthetic of what this world, this universe actually is. No one in this universe is having a good time. Or if they
Yeah.
are having a good time, it's not for very long. It's like,
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be born on a paradise world, incoming Tyranid Hive fleet. And you're just like, oh no. And that was a fun like 30 minutes. But
Yeah. It's an interesting aesthetic because it's not as easy to define as like impressionism, right? It's not as easy to define as heavy metal because it's definitely more open to artistic interpretation than other painting styles.
do you
But
think
at the
that's
same
because it's
time,
newer? Sorry to interrupt, but do you think that's because it's newer and we are starting to see the definition of grimdark really start to form? We've seen enough
n-
people do enough things that
no,
and have it generally start getting defined as a mythos of what the grimdark painting aesthetic is.
no. I think it's just the style itself is more open for interpretation than other styles. I really do think that's what it is I think that a lot of people can interpret what grimdark really is. Like, we're talking about I think one of the cornerstones of grimdark is like correctly conveying the emotion of a fictional universe. And at the core of that, that's more open for interpretation, right? Like if you are basically your own interpretation of a fiction universe can vary, right? What I think the 40K universe, the thick of it might be is maybe slightly different than what you think. And I think that part of grimdark is portraying the 40K universe in an accurate fashion, but you can't necessarily do it accurately because it's fiction, right? And there's little tiny differences in conflicting stories and lore and potential ideas and things that can happen in this vast universe, right? Like the idea that all Space Marine armor is clean because it's like a religious thing to them. They have to keep Space Marine armor clean. Also, I'm not a big lore person, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah.
But it's that concept might mean different things, right? Like if I want my army themed around coming back from a long crusade, like how could their armor possibly be clean at this point? Sure, like that might be their thing once they get back on their big like drop ship. They're like, all right, I guess we got to clean our armor now. Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But like are you really capturing the essence? Are you just capturing Marines that are standing on a spaceship, or are you capturing Marines that are in battle? And like those are the different elements that I think are much more open for artistic and creative interpretation than other painting styles. And I think that that's also really what throws off being able to clearly define what grimdark is and isn't. And so I don't think it has to do with the relative newness of it, because painting grimdark is also not new. Like it's been very fleshed out. Like there's some very like John Blanche, for example. Like it's
Okay.
that's not new by any means, but the style has been more fleshed out. And I think that we still are having a lot of the same conversations. We're just having them more often at a larger scale because more people are doing it now. It is more popular than it's ever been.
So you mentioned John Blanche, and you're absolutely right. Like his art has been around forever.
So is his minis.
Oh, is like his painted minis, or
Yeah.
like just the models of his minis? Because like I know like the everyone's going absolutely nuts because there's the Black Templar from the John Blanche art, like with
Hmm.
the big like the axe and the flamer and like this giant like chest piece that is unique and all this other stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that's great going back to like that aesthetic, especially for firstborn Marines. But I was under the impression that his stuff was kind of just like the 2D art that helped set the scene. I
He
didn't know
has
that.
miniatures out.
Okay,
Yeah. And
I learned something today.
contrary to Trovarion's belief, I think they're very grim dark. So,
Trevelyan's the he's a YouTuber, correct?
yeah.
And he occasionally streams. I
I didn't know that.
I think
I knew he makes YouTubes.
I think he streams occasionally. I think I even follow him. I've never
Yeah.
watched him, but it's like, oh, I saw this guy on YouTube. He says, oh, check out my streams on Twitch. I'm like, I may do that. Follow.
Huh. I didn't know that. I won't be watching, but I didn't know that.
So one of the this kind of dovetails in talking about style, talking about technique. many folks here are familiar with your approach, your grim
Hmm.
dark approach, and how you've managed to take to me, and I have no qualms of saying you have been one of the biggest influences on my painting philosophy since I came into the hobby. And when I first started watching your streams, I did not anticipate that would ever be the case. Not in a negative way, but I never would have realized that this goofy dude who had way too much energy at 7 o'clock in the morning would be helping me define how I approach my armies forever.
Hmm.
And you have this amazing ability to take a look specifically that you want to get, and then you find the fast way to get the best version of that look,
Hmm.
because you kind of cemented in my mind the reminder that these are things that are meant to be played with,
Hmm.
and trying to get the best look for the best, like finding the balance between as good as I can make it look but also get it done in a reasonable amount of time. So
Yeah.
first off, talk about how you arrived there, and then
Okay.
two, let's run through like kind of that approach for folks who don't know about
Yeah.
the Sauce Grim Doinks approach to painting.
Yeah, so my life outside of the hobby, I'm very interested in like life hacks and like the concept of like breaking time barriers and figuring out the absolute most effective and efficient way to get from point A to point B. Is just almost like a hobby, like almost like a, I don't know, like it's like an obsession, really. And a lot of that stemmed from reading books from Tim Ferriss, like many years ago. Um, and I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss, but Tim Ferriss is a bit of a like a life hack author, a life like a home improvement, not like literally home improvement, but like how to improve your life at home, like how to live a better life type of
So
person.
kind of like a life coach kind of dude.
I guess,
But
but
life
he's
coach
like,
sounds so like guru-y. Like let's
yeah,
sit down and like meditate on that money you want to make it happen.
yeah, and I think, like, his approach to, yeah, I don't know if I'd call him a life coach. He's more of like a life coach scientist. He's, like, so scientifically committed to the bit that it's crazy. So, um, he has this whole concept that he's the best learner in the world. He's the self-proclaimed best learner in the world, and he'll say that, which is very it's a very hot take, but
Yeah,
as
that
soon as
is a
he
very
says
hot
something like
take.
that, you're like, "Oh, that's interesting." And, so the reason is because he is a firm believer in 80/20, which you've heard me talk about probably a lot. And he lives his entire life and his existence around the concept that by focusing on the most important 20% of any given topic, you could become 80% maximum proficiency at it. And I think that that's, it comes from an Italian economist. It was a theory from way back in the day about how 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Fast forward to 2021, that percentage is probably even more fucked up, especially over in America. But the idea remains true. And whether it's exact science true or not, it's a very interesting concept that the wealth and life balance is it's not balanced. And I think that when you look at time and how to take advantage of and exploit your own time, you can see different areas that you get a very small return on your investment, and you see other areas that you get a very high return on your investment, right? If you want to make money, you will find that you will likely make more money by going to work than taking a nap, right? Like there's very obvious changes you can make, and there's very obvious things that result in these gains. But that concept is super important to me. The idea that not all time is created equal, not all activities are created equal, and certain things that you can focus on yield a higher return on your investment. So, things like, from a painting perspective, how this applies to and how I got into this is the same mindset just lives in my brain about like everything. This is not exclusive to how I spend my free time. This is not exclusive to how I hobby. This is like lives in my head rent free all day every day. All I do is think about this 80/20 technique. and I try to apply it in as many places as humanly possible in my life so that A, I could do more cool shit, and so that B, I have more free time to do whatever the fuck I want. And that's pretty much it. Like those are the two primary drivers behind it is like I want to be able to say like I've got most of my day done in 4 hours. Like what can I do now for 10? I could do whatever I want, you know? And like that's an important concept to me. So a lot of the same things roll into painting. And at a very early phase in painting, I was soaking up as many YouTube tutorials as possible. And I think the person who I soaked up the absolute most in my early days of painting was old Kenny Boucher. Yo dog himself was like blowing my mind at like an early phase of painting. And his approach to like, hey, this is actually really easy. And here's how I do it. And here's why it's easy. Which basically his early videos could have just been called, you should get an airbrush, watch me paint this faster than I should be able to. That's really what his early videos could have been called. And so I did. I was very like, doing some of the Games Workshop tutorials, doing some other YouTube tutorials when I was early painting. But when I really started watching Next Level Painting, things started to click. I started to understand color gradients. I started to understand like, yeah, airbrushing really is OP. It is really, really the ultimate tool for hacking your time with painting. And that's that was really my first big efficiency cornerstone with painting. And I feel like ever since then I've been able to dissect pieces that I see, styles, colors, pieces, anything, and think through from an efficiency standpoint, how was this done? Or how did they do it? What do I think they did wrong? And how would I paint this instead? I don't really spend much time thinking about exactly how somebody paints something as much as thinking about how I would paint it instead. And I think that that's actually probably something more unique or defining than we see from a lot of entry level, beginner, even intermediate hobbyists. Is I think that a lot of them want a full blown step by step guide on how things are painted instead of thinking like, this is probably how this was painted. Eh,
Rather than it, so it's the the desire to have everything explained to you, which is kind of what most people kind of want,
Yeah.
versus learning how to intuitively determine based on technique knowledge rather than a step by step guide. So, what should be learned is technical, like, even if it's just like being able to visually identify. And of course, like through doing it, like learning the difference between stippling and wet blending, learning the difference
Right.
between like when to dry brush and when to edge highlight.
Yes.
So
I, yeah. I mean, on that same exact same thing, and this is going to be an interesting one, but I think that technique videos are great tutorials. I think how to paint something is a terrible tutorial because everybody should be spending much more time learning techniques and then should be focused on understanding what one technique can achieve, right? So when I think about like base layering a model, I think step one is build a gradient. That is my step one. So then I say, how do I build a gradient? And then I say, I use an airbrush because I'm not a lunatic and I don't glaze in all my transitions. I don't
oh
have that
god.
kind of free time. I don't care about even finding that kind of free time. I have zero intention to do that. So for me, when I think about base coating, I say I need to build a gradient. How do I build a gradient? I use an airbrush. And then if I'm looking at a model, I would say, okay, you painted this ultramarine. How would I paint blue now that I know I'm using an airbrush to build the gradients? I don't have to think about how to do it. Now I'm only thinking about the colors. So then I'm also not saying, I wonder what colors you use. I'm saying, these are the blues I like. And so this is how I would paint it.
Yeah, like I
And
would use purple, like a really dark purple green or something, some off color as the shadows for the blue that I would then do as my like mid-tone and then as my zenithal for my gradient. And again, with an airbrush, it's super fast. Paint the underside of the model, paint it straight on, paint it from the top. Done.
yeah,
And you've got your
yeah,
gradient. And it's taking that approach, learning techniques first, you won't even need the step by step guide because you will start to get to the point where you can look at a finished model and be like, oh, I see how he did that skin because he did green first or he did blue
hmm
first for the skin to give it that like that warmth or that coldness under the
Yeah.
flesh.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to start identifying these things. Now, will you always utilize it? Speaking from experience, no, I won't. I'll be able to look and be like, oh, that was a really good wet blending job. I'm not going to do that because I don't got that kind of time. Because like Astraeus said, and I'm going to be paraphrasing, however you find your fun in the hobby, like there are people who like their joy, be it Warhammer or just like miniatures in general, their joy comes from spending 75 hours on a mini. That's like their idea of fun, is every single brush
Yeah.
stroke because it's therapeutic. Totally get it. I can like I lose myself painting these Warhammer models. I totally get that. Zen Kaizen, I think, is also the Japanese term for it, the flow, just being in a flow state.
Yeah.
And that feels amazing. But for me, it's playing the game. It's finding the balance between I want to play the game as much as I can with new armies, and I also want to have the armies look good because I hold myself to a certain standard. So finding the
Yes.
balance between getting a playable army as fast as possible, but also making it look pretty, that's where I live, and that's where I found your stuff. And by finding your stuff, it helped inform how I approach minis, which is basically how you approach minis.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's such an important topic, is just finding your happiness, and like even more so for creators. I think it's so easy as a content creator to get pulled away from your happiness or get pulled in 1,000 different directions and doing projects and collabs and weird shit that you're like, what am this like I need to do this, or I'm obligated to do this, or people want me to do this, but it doesn't spark joy inside of me. And like finding your own hobby happiness is like so clutch. And that's what's also so important. Like I have very strong opinions about how I paint, what looks good, what doesn't, what techniques are good, what doesn't, what's a waste of time. But that doesn't mean that that's universal. That is what applies to me. I love to share my opinions, and I would absolutely share these all day. But if anything I say doesn't resonate with anybody, that's just because it's my opinion. And this is what I have found hobby happiness through. But if you find hobby happiness in edge highlighting every single detail on a miniature and painting heavy metal style, like absolutely you should be doing that. And like that's, I think, a big thing that is very easy as a content creator to get lost on that idea of like just do what you want to do, create what you want to create, because that's way more passionate than doing what you feel obligated to do.
Well, and the passion comes through. Like
Yeah.
if you're watching me be like, okay, well, the meta right now is get a giant thing from Forge World and then talk about it and paint it because Squidmar's done it. Um, Funny enough, apparently they had plans before and they ordered it like 2 days after Squidmar announced his video for doing his Manta.
Yeah.
And they're like, God damn it, he got his Manta before us. Where he's gonna like, because we were the first ones in this kind of sphere to try to make a video documenting the process. So now they're challenging him. They're turning it into a new form of content. But that said, to bring it back around, the whole idea of like get a big model and then like try to be the first to paint it and then like sell it on eBay, like Squidmar with his $35,000 metal Thunderhawk.
Hmm.
That's not my thing. But if I tried to do that because that's the meta, it doesn't matter if I'm doing the right thing at the right time. If to me, if I'm not clearly having a good time, no one's going to want to watch it anyway.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're like, okay, well now we're gonna go in and we're gonna edge highlight everything, and then I'll do like a speed, like like we do the high speed, but then you just see me with just like the most like fucking kill me face ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no one wants to watch that. No one wants to watch a sourpuss put an edge highlight on a model. So I
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah. But that's you through experience finding what makes you happy and pursuing your happiness in the hobby, which is really the ultimate and the biggest thing to take away from this conversation, I would say so far. Like I think for everybody it's so important to continue to explore and make what makes you happy your cornerstone, but touch other ideas. Like let them come near your cornerstone brick, but they don't have to be your brick. They might live next to it. Like you might build a nice new wall, but like I I think that ideally, um, your cornerstone should remain your cornerstone. And I think that people can get very, very pulled away from that for a million different reasons. But it's so important to try other stuff, but like don't lose the fun. Don't lose like what makes you you. And I think that that's something, especially for all the content creator friends out there, like do what makes you the happiest and can just do that. Make content with passion. Don't make content to make content. I think is one of the most important things I've learned. Because I mean, I've been making Warhammer content for 2 years also. Pretty much the whole time I've been into Grim Dark, I've been in the background making content. It wasn't necessarily Grim Dark themed, but I've been making YouTube videos for 2 years now. And like, I can definitely tell you my best videos were made with passion and my worst videos were made because I was obligated. And like finding your fun and your passion and your happiness is the most important key to this whole thing, especially for a creator. But even as a hobbyist, right? Finding the techniques that really make you happy, finding the kit bashes, the projects, the armies that make you the happiest will bring the most ultimate joy to you. And like, I mean, for me to circle this whole thing back, like to me, painting efficiently is very important because at the beginning of this hobby, I got into Warhammer to play Warhammer. I did not get into it to say, I want to paint Warhammer. I said, I want to play Warhammer again. And I found a deep love with painting Warhammer. It is so fun and so rewarding for me that it in at times has surpassed playing. But my cornerstone is playing. And I've brought a bunch of bricks that are very close to playing it, but at times I've completely neglected playing. And inside of the hobby, that's where I'm the least happy. So a lot of the cornerstone bricks that I've brought near the cornerstone, right? The other bricks, the other concepts near it really are there to support my cornerstone, which is play the game. And so to play the game, a lot of my hobbiness has been built around um, finding the most effective way to paint an army because I now want to play the game with a badass looking army,
Mhm.
right? But I don't want to spend 200 hours painting an army. I want to spend like
Or
75.
$2,000 paying someone to paint it for you. By the way,
Yes, correct.
Sauce takes commissions, so but only if you're in the Denver area. So
Also, I don't know if I'm going to be taking anymore.
oh
I might be wrapping up my last commissions. I really think one of my big goals for next year, speaking of like passions and fun and doing
yeah,
your thing, is to just focus on YouTube.
there you go.
Um,
I take that
so
back.
I don't know if I'll be
You
doing
had
any
your
more.
chance, people.
Yeah, you
You had
blew
your
it.
chance. You had your chance.
Yeah,
You had a
you
good
blew
thing
it.
and you ruined it.
You ruined it.
It's all your fault, chat. No, it's not. I love you,
Yeah.
chat. It's okay. Come back. No, we I've like I don't get me wrong, Sauce. I know you will say like, oh, I'm not doing commissions anymore. I'm still gonna be like, hey, Sauce, here's how I did my custodes. I'm gonna need a custodes like captain from you at some point, and I will of course pay you for it. But I will be banging down your door for said because like speaking about the reason why I said custodes is because so I could remind myself. You're absolutely right. Like creating something that you do quickly, that you can play with, that you are proud of. I still look over at that Custodes army and go, I painted that in 11 days and it looks fucking hot and I love
Hmm.
it. I'm more proud of that than the Sisters army I banged out in 9 weeks.
Yeah.
And
And it's because it was rewarding and fun. Everybody has different levels of fun in this hobby. There's different things that bring you a reward. Unless you play the game, um, I c I could definitely see if you are just a strict hobbyist, if you do not play 40K, I could see speed painting being totally not your thing. Because people are like, "Well, I bought this $60 box of minis and I painted it in a day. Now what?" It's like, "Well,
do it
you're
again.
supposed to play it, but okay, that's fair. I mean, if you don't wanna play, it's your hobby, don't play." But, if people find their joy in making display pieces, make display pieces.
and
But,
that
like,
sorry, the and that's kind of what I was realizing was going to happen. There is going to be a terminal point for me. I'm making all of the armies that and I planned out all the armies that I want to do. Between now and this time next year, I think I will have every single army that I have any intention of playing. Like, yeah, will I do the occasional model to add to them? Sure. But army painting will be behind me, and I
mhm,
might start doing more focuses on kit bashing, or even just now maybe I'll start expanding into doing hyper detailed stuff from Archvillain Games or Creature Caster. But like I will have this year alone, if I can finish this not AdMac, if I can finish this Gene Stealer Cult army, I will have done 5 armies this year. All of which will have had
extremely commendable, sir. Extremely commendable.
thank you, especially because 3 of them will have been incredibly augmented, converted, kit bashed. Like the sisters one, there is the Repentia, Celestine, and the Rhinos are the only models that have not had any modifications made to them.
Yeah.
Everything else of an over like a nearly 3,000 point sisters army, everything else is 100% kit bashed. All the hairstyles are unique. All the
Yeah.
guitars are painted uniquely. Does it create a uniform looking army? Hell no. Do I care? Hell no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, that's I love painting armies also. I mean, I can relate to painting armies as being something that brings me joy. Like, I like to be able to look at it and say, I painted that army. Like, to go back to your Custodes comment
Mhm.
that that feels so rewarding to you. Like, I totally get that. I totally get when you look at it and you're like, I have a painted army. That to me is one of the ultimate satisfactions of this hobby is to be able to say, it's done, you know, and I'm going to go play it is so rewarding. And I think that that's something that, um, it it I don't know, it's like the more I paint armies, it doesn't go away. It's still the same exciting feeling. You're like, "Holy shit!" Like, you take pictures, you take it to the shop, it's just done, and, like, that is the shit to me. I love that, and, like, as far as painting efficiently and why that's so important to me, it's because I want that feeling more. Like that dopamine rush from finishing an army is like unbelievable to
Oh
me.
yeah.
I'm like riding high for like a week, dude. Like when I finish a commission, when I finish I finished that Thousand Suns commission on Tuesday. I have not touched a paintbrush since. All I've been doing is playing Call of Duty. And like it's so rewarding to just be done with it, and like that to me is what drives so many of my decisions while painting, that I focus my style around painting an army with that style, not a piece. I'm like, I need to be able to replicate this indefinitely. And the products I use back that up. Like, this is why I don't use chimera paints. I could never be a chimera painter because you have to mix your own goddamn colors.
Hmm.
Like, sure, you could use a couple of them straight out of the bottle, but like the whole point of that range is to mix your own colors, which is so good for display painters. If you paint display models and you're not using chimera paints, you're doing it wrong.
Oh yeah.
And like, but it's maybe, in my opinion, one of the worst possible paint ranges for an army painter because duplicating colors is basically impossible. Literally, unless you're just going straight from the bottle, you're completely neglecting the point of the range anyway. So like, ah, I don't know. So much of my emphasis and style, the techniques, the products I use are revolved around this idea of making um, an army, like painting an army is where my style comes from. So there's certain techniques I don't do because I don't think it's worth doing over and over again across an army. There's certain things that I do every single model because I think the return on your time investment is massive. And that's really where my style comes from. I'm able to look at models, I'm able to look at box art, I'm able to look at other people's work and be inspired by it, but take those ideas and take a couple of those concepts and figure out how to make them effective and mix them into what I already do. And that a lot of that's come from experience, but a lot of that came from my core value of like wanting to 80/20 fucking everything. Like, I can't imagine not being efficient. Like, I can't do it. I don't like the idea of painting slow. I don't like the idea of, like, you know what I mean? Like, so much of this stuff to me does not speak to me. And not only does it not speak to me, it like hurts my soul. Like to think about like slowing down and not painting an army. I'm like, oh God, like that's not me. And so it's so much of my style, my techniques, the products, everything revolves around painting an army with it, and that's really what guides me and pushes me. And so much of my like wanting to be efficient comes from these concepts where it's like I want to be able to finish an army that looks like this. You know, I'll paint a test model, and if I don't love it, test it again, test it, test it, test it, test it. And I along the way I'm thinking about, is this step even adding value to the finished product or not? And if it's not, I'll take it out. You know, and there's certain things and details that I'll just skip entirely when I paint too. And people are like, "You didn't paint that." And I'm like, "Yeah." And, like, it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the finished aesthetic of this product, but it changes sometimes people's opinions, you know, like sometimes people will be like, that's crazy that you just do this one step and cover it in streaking grime. Like my metallics. These days, I don't do anything. I've been very lazy with metallics, like silver, so like guns or swords. I literally just coat it in silver and hit it with streaking grime, and that's it. People are like, it looks kind of flat, and I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm going for a fully painted army. So I don't know. A lot of my style comes from just being able to look at something and take it apart and figure out what's the most important 20% of this one single part. Like a base coat, for example. What's the most important part of a base coat? Well, to me, it's building a good gradient, and you can build a good gradient very effectively with an airbrush. So there's your 80/20 on base coating. If you want to paint details fast, use true metallics. It's usually one coat. So there's your 80/20 on painting details. Like if you're painting a space marine, like paint their shoulder trim, the aquila, paint all that with true metallic. Just be done with it. Like, don't overthink it.
And an NMM is not a speed painter's friend.
No. The concept, though, I would say, even if your thing is painting armies, I would say it's very important to learn non-metallic because you will learn proper glazing, proper light placement, and even like better edge highlighting. There are certain things that you should be testing and thoroughly trying out as like a army painter that are techniques to really have up your sleeve that are great. Like being able to glaze is cheat codes. It's basically having an eraser on your paintbrush because you can change anything. Um, and
That's
it's
something that I need to learn, and I've been avoiding it, but I'm kind of resigning myself and trying to get myself excited for. I'm sure there is going to be a non-metallic metal for beginners course at Adepticon next year, and I'm
Mhm.
going to be in that class when I'm not playing games with people. I'm gonna be like a Pokemon trainer walking around with my army, and the second I make eye contact with somebody, I'm like, I challenge you. Like, and then I point to a table. Like, that's just gonna be my entire weekend. So y'all get ready. It's gonna
Do
be
you want me
nuts.
to hit you with some life advice?
Sure.
You shouldn't wait till Adepticon to learn that.
But I like that's gonna be the most convenient place for me to do it. And right now I'm in the middle of a Gene Stealer cult army. Like, I recognize that, like, it's better to why put off for tomorrow what you can do today, sort of thing. But I've created a schedule for myself of what I want to knock out. So Gene Stealer cult by the end of the year.
Hmm.
Like, that's like 3,000 points of Gene Stealer cults that I'm basing and modifying and all this other crazy shit. Then Conquest is going to come out with the Old Dominion army, the undead Roman legions, and I'm that's going to come out Q1 of next year. Before that comes out, I will be painting a Thunderhawk for my Cosmic Rhinos, and then Adepticon hits. So these are the
Hmm.
things that, like, I'm doing until Adepticon, and then Adepticon happens. Maybe I'll do a couple practice models for non-metallic metal after that, and then hopefully by then they're going to start releasing all the rumored chaos models, and then that's when I'm going to make my decision of what kind of chaos army I'm going to do. And then once I have my chaos army, I'm done. I don't have any more armies that I want to play
For now.
for now. But for the foreseeable future, I will have Chaos, Sisters, Space Marines, Custodes, and Gene Stealer Cult, and I'll have a Dark Angels army, a Firstborn Dark Angels army
Do
that
you
that I'm building for my brother.
do you want some more life advice?
Yes,
You should still not wait to Adepticon for non-metallic training. You should learn it right now. Are you between projects? Is your Custodes done?
the Custodes are done. Dude. I'm in the middle of the Gene Stealer Cult already. I've been doing
Have you
this.
painted it?
No, I'm building it. I still need to build
Okay,
and
so you're
base
between
everything.
projects.
That's not
You were
between.
between. Yes, you are.
How
It's
is that?
between until the paint hits.
I have to build. I need to do my green stuff capes because
Look,
all my
dude.
brood
Look,
brothers, all my bikes,
listen. Building models is the most traumatically horrible experience in this hobby,
hard
and it
disagree.
is awful, and
Hard
you should
disagree.
be listening to some tutorials about non-metallic while you're doing the most boring part of this hobby, which is building models, and then you can learn about it, and then you should challenge yourself to dabble a little bit of glaze into your Gene Stealer cult. There is literally no reason to wait until Adepticon. You have a shitload of things to paint coming up. Why not know how to do it going into it?
I'm going to be using my very first bottle of oils
There you go.
for for the basing for this Gene Stealer coat because I think this is going to be the perfect color for the basing.
Yeah.
But and
Try it out.
also I'm going to be playing with pigments as well.
Try it out. Oh yeah, it's fun.
So I got a bunch of Vallejo rust and corrosion pigments that should be fun to play with. But fine, okay, you and Chad are bullying me.
Just try it, dude. Like it's one of those things that you don't have to. You just have to understand how it works because, and this is okay. This is a good pro tip to you and everybody else. When you want to learn a technique, you should learn a style that utilizes that technique, not that technique, right? So if you want to learn glazing, you should learn non-metallic because it will teach you multiple things. It will teach you glazing, it will teach you light placement and volumetric shading, and if you're doing it very good, it will teach you very clean and crispy edge highlights. And like learning something like non-metallic will teach you multiple things, which is it's just such a cheat code. It is such a cheat code. And so, yeah, there you go. There's
8-pointed
my cheat
star
code of
says
the
I
day.
can teach the basics of non-metallic metal in an hour. And you know
I
what?
bet he could.
That's
He
80
knows his
20.
shit.
That's 80-20. 8-pointed star, I'm taking you up on that. We're gonna do 1 hour. 8-pointed star teaches Doc how to do non-metallic metal, and then I can say, Sauce, I did it. Now I can get back to doing the other shit that I need
Then
to
paint
do.
your G's to the cult.
Yeah.
With painting, there is absolutely there's and it's so important. There's no reason to put off techniques or concepts because all you're doing is delaying potential, right? Like you could come out knowing so much more about painting just by learning non-metallic because you've learned light placement, which will help you do better base coats. You've learned glazing, which will make you a painting god because you could do cheat codes everywhere and now you have an eraser on your paintbrush. And then you'll learn super obnoxiously good crispy edge highlights. All of those things impact every single part of a model. It's not just learning non-metallic, it's learning all of the core of what that really means. And like those are things that you're not going to paint a non-metallic army because you're not a lunatic. You're not going to paint non-metallic details on all of your gene circle because there's like 150 of them, but you're going to know things that will change how you paint and they will improve how you paint without even knowing it. Non-metallic is one of the most important things you can learn as a painter because it teaches you absurdly important skills.
Yeah, it's like the non-metallic metal is the technique that has multiple bullet pointed techniques below, like you just said, like glazing, wet blending to a certain extent, edge highlighting, glazing. It's it's all important technique. And my father is a big innovation minded person, and that is kind of like leaked into me. And
Mhm.
while innovation is all about cross disciplinary um interaction, like getting an artist in the room with an engineer, and you're going to have ideas pop up because you're having one person's input on another person's field that'll create something that was never potentially imagined by the other. While this is all art and we're still in an art technique field, it cannot, and you're absolutely right that it cannot be discounted that you should learn as much as you can as often as you can because
Mhm.
you never know how I may see a way that 8-pointed star teaches glazing. I'll be like,
Mhm.
I can make that faster. And like let's just assume that I'm correct. Like I'm like, if I use that technique and I can do it faster on this army this way, I can get this look, which is something that maybe I imagined I wanted. I'm like, there's no way I could do that, but now I can because I took the time to learn a technique, and given my experiences, I might find a way to innovate on it. Probably
Mhm.
not, but it's worth a shot.
You'll never know unless you try it.
Mm-hmm. So this is all like kind of dovetailing back to, granted, now that I look at the notes that I had, all of this is stemming from the assumption that everyone who watches this wants to paint the way that you and to another extent I paint. Army focused, like quality with speed.
Mhm.
This isn't going to be the like how like Sauce gives you the pointer guide to in the Golden Demon. Although, like, I would still love for you to submit a Golden Demon competition piece, knowing that you're probably not going to win, but watch you place in the top 10 and then reveal to the world, like, I painted this Golden Demon entry in an hour and a half, and then watch them all cry.
Yeah.
So actually, that's content for you right there. Like Sauce paints
How fast can I paint a golden demon model?
yeah.
And just, like, benchmark it and try it once a week for a year? That's fucking crazy idea. That's lunatic hobby shit right there. I'm not that committed to the bit, but that's how you would do that. Fuck, that might actually be a good idea. God damn it.
Write it down. The and that also bear in mind, folks, this is coming from the person first place and second place holders of the fastest speed paint of a Mortarian. So we know how to make it happen. You should definitely
Yeah.
take our advice. I'm still waiting
Yes.
on my belt, by the way. I'm still waiting for
It's,
like my pro wrestling belt.
it's back over there. I'll get remind me to show you after the stream.
Right. It's like the dog model all over again. Oh god.
It's
Oh
back over there too.
yeah.
Remind me. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you
Click.
after the stream.
That was
Yeah.
I laughed so hard at the end of that stream. I was crying. Because you're like, oh yeah, Cosmic, let me go get that. Hold on one second. Click. And then just stream end. Oh,
Yes.
that was such a play.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so a couple things. Like, yeah, to your point, I mean, some people might be here for that, but other people might just be here to soak up brain stuff. You know what I mean? I think it's so important to talk to other,
Ooh.
like, one of my favorite creators that I talk to, we get to a similar end result, but don't do it at all the same way. Is like Calf mini painting, dude. Like me and Calf are very same brained. We've been painting the same stuff. We've both done very similar work, but we don't do it at all the same. And like I just love to soak up his brainwaves. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of people are very interested in soaking up approaches and concepts versus techniques, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I am. I'm very into the idea of soaking up somebody's brain versus wanting to copy what they do. I'm like, why do you think like that? How did you get to this outcome? Like, what made you think that this is the best way to do this? I'm way more interested in that conversation than I am show me exactly how you did it. I'm way more interested in that, Chad. I want to know how people's brains work because that influences how mine works.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. And ultimately, spoiler alert, chat, this podcast isn't about some high-minded desire to spread knowledge or even for me to
Knowledge.
learn anything. This is, I can guarantee myself around an hour to an hour and a half of uninterrupted chat time with someone that I admire. That's about as far as we got. Like being able to chat with like Duck Guts, who I need to have back on immediately. Quipster Nerd, Tycho from Play on Tabletop. I really hope I'm beginning the process of seeing if I can get Katie Plays 40K from Tabletop Tactics on the show as well. We got Orky on Sunday. We're gonna be chatting with Orky, so another hobby hero of mine because she's got social media down pat as a content creator, and it terrifies me. You
There's
too,
some
between the two
there's
of you.
well, there's some very good I think we were having this discussion on Duck Guts' stream. Um that there is a lot of very unexperimental corners of the Warhammer niche still, not only like in the live streaming platform, like definitely in the live streaming platform, to be honest, but in places like YouTube, short form content in general, which is absolutely the future of video content, anyways. Um, a lot of it has not been done. There's so much pioneering still going on in this space. And I think that finally we're seeing creators break out and experimenting versus emulating. I think that we're seeing more people now than ever saying, like, I went through my I'm going to make videos like Miniac phase, right? Everybody did. They're like, holy shit, that works. I can do that. Right. And it's like, well, now everybody's done that exact video prototype.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing more people breaking out of that and being like, this is how I'm going to make content. And like that to me is actually how we'll pioneer this space and how we'll continue to have breakout creators because so much shit's already been done and people are refleshing out things that have already been done. Like go to YouTube right now and type in how to paint a blood angel and you'll throw up before you can even get to the bottom of the scroll. There's so many videos. There's so many. And it's like what does this video really bring to the table that's not been said already? And the answer is probably nothing, which is brutal, but it's true. And like we're
And you
seeing
bet
more
most of them are
creators.
probably using the same like paint like
Mhm,
formula as well. Like it's like how many videos can you find where they say start with Mephiston red and then you're
mhm.
gonna edge highlight with a gray and then glaze
Yeah.
it with a red wash. It's going to be like 30% of the videos are going to share 75% of their techniques. And again, like you said, like what good does that do you or the other content creators? You're not
It's
making
been
anything
done.
new.
It's been done. And like I think that that's the brutal truth about the state of Warhammer content is like 90% of it is rewashed same content. Very very little is actually groundbreaking. Very very little holds my attention, and it's because so much of it, whether I've seen that video for the first time or not, I've already seen that video, if you know what I mean. Like I've already seen what they're trying to get across. I've already seen the prototype of it and I understand where it's going. And I think that we're finally now starting to see a new generation of Warhammer content creators that are like, fuck this. This is what I do. And I think that we're seeing, and more than just Warhammer, I think in the YouTube space in general, we're seeing more people breaking out of what they think is their content niche and trying new things. I think another, like, obviously, I'm very impacted, influenced by Tim Ferriss, but I'm also very impacted and influenced by the brain of Devin Nash, who, if you're in the industry, if you're especially a content creator and you don't know who Devin Nash is, you are doing a colossal disservice to yourself, and you need to absorb as much of his content as possible, like by Monday. And
Your homework for the weekend.
seriously, yeah, if you are a creator and you do not know who Devin Nash is, creating until you watch his stuff and just soak up his brain and just try and understand his perspective. But he has this concept that I think is wonderful that's called 1 in 5. And it's that 1 in 5 of your videos or pieces of content is completely different from anything that you were expected to do. And I love that. I think that that's a very interesting way to explore new styles while still creating. And I think it's very important to try new things as a creator. And that's like such an important thing that gets missed all the time. And I think that now we're seeing more Warhammer creators embracing that, right? Like we're seeing Warhammer streamers that just stream a video game in the middle of the stream. We're seeing like there's things that are changing, and I'm all about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
that innovating the space is super important. I think that we're seeing very innovative creators right now who are not afraid to push the mold and that are more happy failing at something new than doing what's already been done. And at least that, I would say that's my perspective. I think that other people might share that. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would much rather go down swinging at something new than say I'm going to make a Blood Angels tutorial. And not to be a dick to anybody who's done that, but like that's not for me. I'm not going. And I have tried so hard to refrain from making a this is how you paint this tutorial. I don't like doing it. I have done it, but it is not what brings me tons of joy right now. You know, like it's not. I don't want to do the Space Marine tutorial. I want to do a technique or a style or a mindset tutorial and experiment with that first. Then be like, here's how I paint a Blood Angel. But fuck, man, it's so tempting to do all of the legions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's so tempting because it is kind of decent performing content. And
Now,
I think that that's the other issue that we see too is people feel obligated to do what's been done because they think that it will equal success. They're like, "Oh, this Blood Angels tutorial has 100,000 views. All I have to do is make a Blood Angels tutorial."
yeah, but they don't see the like the next 5 pages of like 3 views for their Blood Angels tutorial. But
Yeah.
what we were just talking about, do it your way. So you don't necessarily even have to do it as a tutorial. Do like, I'm going to paint one model, one Space Marine for every Legion and every one of the original Legions, Loyalist and uh, Traitor. And I'm going to do each one in a different technique. And then like add like some additional time variant. Like I will do a non-metallic metal Dark Angel or a non-metallic metal Ultramarine, and I'm going to do it in less than blank amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's just what you got to do. And like Cryo just pointed out, when it comes to being innovative in the streaming space at the very least, no one has been more disruptive in recent memory than Duck Guts.
Huge agree.
That guy has a handle on being not just a painter, because his painting is unique, it is fun, it is gorgeous, and he is doing an amazing job reposing models in ways that I've never seen before. And I love him for that. but the fact that he has an energy and a vibe and a production quality on his stream that it pushes the expectations of me, like that I put on myself. Every streamer is entitled to do whatever the hell they want, but like I'm like, I need to get my I need to get my audio in order. I need to get my like I
Mm-hmm.
need to get a stream deck. Like not to copy him, but just to be able to, like, cuz I'm seeing things he does. Just like we're talking about painting techniques. I'm seeing things he does and I'm like, maybe I won't have a toilet sound effect, but I could definitely use a crickets when Doc tells a joke that isn't funny and I just hit the button on myself.
Yeah.
Like I started
Yeah.
doing with sound bites. Like I took your clip from your stream where you're like, thanks for sharing your bad opinion with us today. And I turned that into a soundbite on my stream that Cosmic loves to use on me. It's because I still have you on stream telling me what I'm doing or saying is bad. And that's content for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I think that next gen Warhammer content is gonna be very interesting. I think that we're on the cutting edge of a very new and very different generation of Warhammer creators that are getting some traction, to be honest. I think a lot of people who are on the cutting edge of trying new shit and are like, I know that this is how it's been done. Thank you, OGs. I respect you. I feel like we're at the ramp up of the second wave of really I would say everything prior to the last year was kind of all one wave. I'm not going to lie. Like I feel like all miniature content for the most part has been very similar, not necessarily a bad way, but I think a lot of it had a very similar prototype and I think that it's now been fully fleshed out. I would say we're at the end of wave 1 of Warhammer content and we are either on the way up or in between. But I think the next wave is going to be a lot more innovative. It's going to be a lot more people trying new things to break the mold with the interest of doing content that they think is interesting, but also knowing that, to be honest, the Warhammer ceiling is very low, very low. Like in comparison to the rest of content, especially like YouTube, it is a very, very, very low ceiling. Like ruling out Jazza, right? Jazza doesn't count. Um,
Well,
the ceiling is not that high. You know what I mean? When we think about the largest creators in the Warhammer space compared to other topics, I would say it's a very low ceiling. And I think that especially for me, I recognize that as a creator. I'm like, this channel can only be so big because that's where the ceiling lives. And without a larger ceiling in a different topic, it's hard to be extremely passionate and know the massive long-term gains of making Warhammer content because I know where the ceiling lives. It's right now it's 300,000 subscribers, right? That's the ceiling, and a few people have broken it, but that's the ceiling. Is 300,000 subs. There is so many 300,000 subs in other topics. 300,000 subs is not the ceiling in a lot of topics on YouTube, and it's it makes for a non-competitive, non-innovative creation space in some ways, in my opinion. And I think that we're seeing people start to recognize that and wanting to create in the Warhammer corner, but understanding that the ceiling exists and trying to figure out ways to move the ceiling, right? To say, like, this is the ceiling if I make Warhammer content here, but if I also make this type of content with it, here, let me get this in camera view. You know what I mean? Like, if I also make this type of content, the ceiling only lives here, and this type of content has a much higher ceiling. And so that to me is, at least for me, when I think about diversifying what my content looks like in the future, how to break from just Warhammer to a Warhammer cornerstone, that ceiling is endless. There's many different ways to go, right? Like, so when I think about my channel, the things that I'm passionate about, like, since stopping streaming, I've become incredibly passionate about videography and photography. I love shooting video and taking photos. Those ceilings are so much higher than the Warhammer tag, right? The photography ceiling on YouTube is massive. There are so many multiple million creators on YouTube for just photography, right? And so like those ceilings are wildly different, which makes for a much more diverse and a larger potential in the audience. And I think that more creators are starting to recognize this similar trend is that, the Warhammer space is growing, it's continuing to grow, but I don't think that we've seen a appropriate increase in the ceiling. At the same time that we've seen a lot more creators happen, the ceiling hasn't moved, right? In theory, you should see a creator and the ceiling on a very similar, like almost linear path together, right? As there's more creatives, there's more innovation, which brings more people in the space, which changes the ceiling because now more people know about Warhammer. But we're seeing more creators with a similar ceiling, which is not conducive to an innovative environment, in my opinion. And so I think we're seeing more people, going back to this Duck Guts example. I think Duck Guts, I don't know his background. Um, with streaming. I feel like I caught him the other day saying something like he streamed video games first or something. So I think he is more aware of what's going on in other streaming spaces and understands how to bring those elements. Like what makes a very good video game stream? What makes a very good just chatting stream? What are the couple of elements that are the best for that? And then how can I make that into a Warhammer video or like a Warhammer stream? You know what I mean? And so like I think that we're seeing people looking outside of our bubble for inspiration and innovation, and I think that that is an amazing source of inspiration for Warhammer creators because it pushes the bubble. If and like I think it's so important to have this conversation and be extremely critical, because the more we push the bubble and the higher the ceiling gets, the more we all win, right? Like there's only so many winners in a small ceiling environment, and the more that we can grow the space, the more innovative we get, the more that we get people from outside of Warhammer to watch Warhammer content, the better we win. And in the same way that I'm extremely critical of Games Workshop, it is because my long term growth and project is tied to the success of this content, right? If Warhammer content fails to be successful, so will my channel as a result.
Hmm.
If Games Workshop goes under, so will my content, right? I'm too tied to Games Workshop, in my opinion. I don't have diverse enough painting. And so, like, I'm very critical of Games Workshop because if Games Workshop fails, it will lead to my channel failing, right? And I think that that's very fair to understand the correlation between different creators and the companies that they support, and why it's more important than ever for creators to be extremely critical of the things that we're doing, supporting, and ultimately the companies that we're promoting, because it is imperative to what we're doing, especially if you're in this for a long term side hustle, business, passion, as a way to make a living. If something continues to go wrong or does go wrong or whatever, that will have an impact on the money you make,
Oh yeah.
flat out.
If
And
GW goes bust or their stock prices tumble because 10th edition comes out and now you're paying for two books per army minimum because they put the stratagems all in one book, but only for certain factions. And like if they go to true money hungry mode, which I mean it's hard to imagine they're not already in that, but invariably all of our content, like every time I have a Warhammer model on stream, I'm advertising their product.
mhm,
But you say that you are strongly tied to Games Workshop because
correct.
that's all you do. Is that something that you want to change? Because you could easily change it. You could find another game. You could start painting Infinity models or Parabellum's Conquest. Last Argument of Kings is on the rise. Play on Tabletop just launched their recent video on their first of a 6 video series with them, and the models look cool.
So, yes, to answer your question, that is something that I will be changing, and I'm working on ways to start a slow branch out. To me, um, I have a very hard time being passionate about not Games Workshop models,
That's
just
fair.
to be completely honest. I think that they're incredible models. I think predominantly they nail the sci fi vibe that I like. I will say that there is something about Infinity that I really fucking like. And so there is a chance that in the future I could get into Infinity. It is out of all of the other games, the game that I have not ruled out. I really like what they've done. I like the aesthetic. I like the board. I like how the board looks. And the future of my content, I want to feel more immersive, right? So if I'm painting a model, I want you to see the environment that the model lives in, right? Like I feel like I want to become a more immersive creator is one of my goals. So, Infinity's on my list, but, in a quick response, no, I probably won't be branching out of Games Workshop. Instead, I'll be branching into other content topics first.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. You're not branching out. Or you're not pivoting. You're just adding additional content sources.
Yeah, I want to change my ceiling by adding additional topics that have a different ceiling. And that to me, like when I think like if you want to think about painting and you want to have a conversation about the ceiling of content, There Warhammer is the ceiling, dude. Like, everything is even smaller. Like, if you expect to get traction from anything that's not Warhammer, you're just wrong. Like, it is the unfortunate the game in this space. It is the models in this space. There is other stuff that could be great, right? Like, that we have hit or miss stuff with creators from other games that sometimes goes off, sometimes it doesn't, but generally speaking, as a blanket statement, Warhammer is the topic for this space, and, if I was to switch up my painting content, it probably would be infinity or terrain or environmental style stuff. But I see more opportunity to branch out in topic versus branching out inside of painting, if that makes sense. Like, I would much rather do content about how I photograph miniatures, right? There will be more how I photograph and prepare my photos for Instagram stuff coming out. I will be making literally presets for Adobe Lightroom because I think that there are some very interesting things that I've learned to do in Lightroom that I like to do to my photos before I post it on Instagram, right? Which is a very contentious topic. People are like, "Well, you're editing your photos before you post it." It's like, "Well, fuck yeah, dude. I want it to pop." Right? There's a very thin line that's easy to cross over that like could be like, "Hey, all of my photos are photoshopped and I'm changing how the photo looks," like, to a degree, yes. But the intention is to have a more popping photo on a social media platform to grow my social media. So why would we be shaming that? Right? Like, don't you want people to scroll by your photo on Instagram and be like, "Yo, this is dope." Don't you want your photo to pop? So I think that there's a very thin line between editing a photo to appeal on social media versus basically um like completely cheesing your photos. Does that make sense? I think that it's very important to accurately portray your models, but also have a respect for wanting a photo that performs well on social media.
I
And I
think
think that that's
it's
fair.
I
I
think it's
think that this is a
about
topic that is going to get people fucking fired up,
yeah.
but I'm going to make
Chat's
this video.
going nuts.
Yeah.
The big thing for editing photos, I used to be like I was that purist who's like if you edit your photos, you're cheating or you're making colors look brighter than they actually are. But then I realized your camera is limited. It can only capture so much. Yes, you can go in, but the purpose that I would approach editing a photo with is to compensate for to show what your eye is actually seeing versus what the camera is capable of capturing, even with optimal lighting. So, like, my red I know is brighter than what the camera is capturing, even with optimal, ISO and shutter speed and all this other stuff that I don't understand. It's aside from that, like, if I go in and I up the saturation on the red a little bit, and then I bring down my shadows to like
Mhm.
pile everything together to make it look the way I see it, I feel
Mhm.
that that's a lot different than like going in and then like in Photoshop going in and like editing out all the places that you painted like that your edge highlight went too far, was too globby. That's different.
Right.
That I see as like editing. Touching
Mhm.
up is
Yeah.
is more, I feel like the term that I would use to describe what you're talking about is a touch up.
Yeah, so I think that there's a time and a place for a raw photo, straight out of the camera, and that's for collecting feedback, right? Like, if you're like, "Hey, I want to know what I could do better on this model," don't edit it. Send it to like your painting friends who you trust their opinion and ask them how it looks, right? But if you want to make a piece of content, which I also think we need to be more honest about what posting on Instagram is posting on Instagram is making content. However you wanna look at it, you just created a piece of content, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting your content to be appealing. And I think that it's very interesting, to have an appealing edited photo at the end of your work to show it off, because it's a piece of content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're specifically asking for feedback, what's wrong with that, right? A photo that pops a little bit, that has a little bit more detail added into it, maybe you're working on the sharpness of it to get it to stand out against your backdrop a little more. That's fine. I think that there's a time and a place for those types of photos, but that is something that I will be exploring like in YouTube, right? Like I think that that's a very parallel to Warhammer topic, but it also edges out from the Warhammer ceiling, and now you're in the Lightroom ceiling. Now you're in the photography ceiling, which is significantly higher. It is a very high ceiling in compared to the Warhammer content ceiling. So for me, when I think about like branching out and what's to come, photography will be at the core of a lot of my future content because it's something that I've become very passionate about outside of this space.
Yep. And if you
So
guys want to see his content, we do have a command to get over. I'm sorry, Sauce. I haven't been plugging this more often. Exclamation point Sauce in the chat will get you links to his Instagram and his YouTube. This guy puts out awesome content. He's very responsive if you comment on his stuff. He's obviously been an incredible influence on me and those like me, and he will probably continue to be so for the foreseeable future. He's kind of like I'm gonna call my shot now, and 20 years from now, Sauce will be seen as like the Warren Buffett of the mini painting world. Like he is going to call
no way.
every single play. He is going to manage to have the right move at the right time, and he's gonna pull it off. And
I don't
that's
think so.
see, and
I think the
that's another
Warren
reason
Buffett.
he's so humble. He's so humble.
I don't think that Warren Buffett is innovative enough. Warren
Oh,
Buffett is intelligently conservative
Warren
with his
Buffett
investments.
wishes he was me.
Yeah, he's actually extremely conservative. He's not an innovator. I think that he's just a conservative investor, to be honest with you.
Okay. So
I mean,
who's the shot caller that or is there no one like Sauce? Well, okay, who am I kidding? There is no one like Sauce. There is only the Sauce.
well, I make content. I'm critical of content, and I enjoy the hobby. And I don't have any opinion that I won't share. I would say that's probably me,
And
really.
that's one of the reasons why like I really like having you on here is it's really nice to have somebody who like yeah, you're going to say something that's going to get everyone's eyebrows to like shoot up into their hairlines, and I'm going to have to be like explain. And that's where the really good conversations come from. Now, I mean, you haven't necessarily said anything I didn't think for half a second and go, yes. It's which tends to be the case, or maybe I'm just easily influenced. That's actually probably more likely. Tell me what to think about this, Sauce, and I will think
I'll
it.
tell you. I will tell you. I'm just very opinionated. I'm very critical, and I have
The
absolutely no issue sharing those
the
things.
Kanye West of minis.
I don't know whether to be honored or offended. Kanye West is my celebrity I would get lunch with, though. Like, if there's one person that I would love to just say, "How the fuck did you get this way?" I think it's Kanye West. Like, can you imagine lunch
Why
with him
are
to
you
just
the
be
way
like,
you are?
"Dude," yeah, be like, "What happened, man?" Like,
Mine be Seth
it would
Rogen. I think I'd get lunch with Seth Rogen.
yeah, that's a good pick. There's a lot of good picks. I just think, like, the absolute weirdest experience you could ever have would be a lunch with Kanye, and I'm about that. I think that I don't know if you could ever have a weirder celebrity lunch, ever. Like, maybe
Gary
Tarantino.
Gary
A
Busey.
Tarantino lunch would be fucking weird,
Yeah, he'd just be
but,
staring at
like
your feet. But yeah, I think Gary Busey would be the only like, and that is like the extreme, like the only person who I could think would be more insane to sit down with would be Gary Busey than Kanye. But
mhm.
so there's a movie called My Dinner with Andre. This is kind of like artsy piece, but there's a movie called My Dinner with Andre, and now we can get the Sauce stars in My Lunch with Kanye. So it's even got the same like verbal flow to it. I could see that being like that could be a thing. My lunch with Kanye, tapas with
Sure.
Kanye.
Yeah.
It'll be like Sauce's new version of comedians in cars getting coffee.
Mhm.
It's painters in a pub getting pints.
Now we're talking.
Also, Andre the Giant. No. So well, if you don't mind, Sauce, I want to give chat like 5 minutes to ask you questions.
Okay. Don't fuck this up, chat, because if you ask a dumb question, I
Oh
will tell
no,
you it's dumb.
I'm filtering the questions. So it'll be on me. If I let their question get through me to you, then that's on me. That's not on them.
If anybody's ever told you that there's no such thing as a stupid question, that's a stupid person. There is definitely dumb questions.
I think any question asked with sincerity is not stupid, but any question asked out of true ignorance, like if you ask like is the world round? Like you fucking know it is, you piece of shit. It's not but if you're asking like how deep does the ocean go? It's like who fucking knows? I don't know off the top of my head how deep the Marianas Trench is. I know it's really fucking deep. It's like
Mhm.
my emotions after listening to like Third Eye Blind when I was in like 8th grade deep, which is to say not very. Duck Guts asks a very important question. Why does my pee pee go hard?
That has to do with the blood in your system and your circulation. So
um, do. Oh, Greenskins, you are a man after my own heart. Is a hot dog on a bun considered a sandwich? If so, why?
yes,
Yes, it is.
yes.
And you know why it is, Greenskins? And you know why he has this opinion? Because I beat him into submission on this subject. Every point he made, I slapped it down until he just admitted. He broke down on stream and said, Rhino has convinced me a hot dog is a sandwich.
A
And
hot dog is a sandwich.
I raised my arms in victory. Yes.
Yes. I mean, I'm even now fucking unfortunately of the opinion that a taco is a sandwich,
It
although it
is.
is much more contentious. I
Mhm.
mean, if a taco can even remotely be talked into being a sandwich, a hot dog is without a doubt a fucking sandwich. Like, it is so much closer in sandwich properties than a taco. And I think that there's a very solid argument that a taco is a sandwich.
We
There's a very good argument for that.
we've talked about this once or twice on stream, and every time I bring it up, oh my god, like Cosmic is probably gone already. He has
Yeah.
probably left the chat because of this.
Oh, cosmic.
Duck Guts says you're both fired. Well, Duck Guts also doesn't believe that what is it, that a bagel is bread? I think is Duck Guts's sticking point. So a burger is a sandwich. It is. A
Definitely.
burger is a sandwich.
100%. A burger is even more of a sandwich than a hot dog. The sandwich spectrum is actually pretty big, and it runs from black all the way to white, right? There's a lot of gray in the sandwich spectrum, it turns out, the more you learn about it. But, it's to me, the spectrum of sandwiches is a very deep, horrible hole to go into, to be honest. But oh, a burger lives hard on the sandwich end of the spectrum to where a taco is on the white end of the spectrum, like, and a legitimate sub sandwich is on the black end of the spectrum. Like they're in the sandwich spectrum. A taco is like, I fucking guess, dude. Like shit, I guess. But like, man, a burger is hardcore on the sandwich end of things.
Oh my god, Matt Yee says critical sandwich theory.
I'm about it.
That's
I'm
a
about it.
well played, sir. That's a good 3-word combo.
Hmm.
Um so Quietus asks, why do you not like building models? Because I want to expound on that a little bit. Why do you not like building models, but you enjoy kit bashing?
Because one is following instructions and is boring and uncreative, and the other is very creative.
Fair enough. Yes, that is true. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy kit bashing so much too. That, and I hate being what I consider wasteful. If like this is just one of the multiple containers of bits that I have. Having this sit around feels like when I shake this, I hear pennies and dimes and nickels shake. Like this is money that I'm not using that I spent. So if I
Mhm.
can find cool, innovative ways to use the stuff in this, I'm getting my money back, so to speak, and kind of like spitting in GW's face at the same time.
Yes, which everybody should do a little bit of. That's fair
Uh,
to do.
is Thunderhead coming to the family barbecue?
I don't even know what that means. So no, they're not invited.
Cousin Thunderhead isn't coming because he's
Who is
essentially
Thunderhead?
Thunderhead Studio, another streamer.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, Thunderhead can come.
Yeah, because he's one of us. He is the one of the bald, bearded, white guys of the Twitch / YouTube sphere in the painting world.
Matt Yee can't come unless he buzzes his head.
Unless he did buzz the sides. He did
Doesn't
buzz the
count.
sides, but he can't come because he's like our brother-in-law or something like that, like cousin.
It's a no hair barbecue, dude. So if you want to join, you have to buzz your head. It's
Bald
not
gang.
like we're not gatekeeping hair. It's a food safety issue. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't come.
Yeah, we don't want any food in the any hair in the barbecue. Like, who wants that? Who wants to be like pulling away that nice sweet rib meat and then just being like, oh, big long Matt Yee hair all over my food. Cool.
Hmm.
I'm bald and bearded. 8-pointed star, you're in.
You're in. You're invited.
Throwing bits away is a war crime. Absolutely agree.
True that.
Because worst case scenario, you just sell them to someone who really needs them. Take advantage of their need. But I'm not seeing any significant questions. So Sauce,
What's in here? Let me look. There's questions all over the place.
well, no, none from any. Like I see, like Cosmic asked a question, but who cares?
Is cereal a soup? Only if it's hot. Next question.
No, it's a gazpacho. Gazpacho is cold soup.
Gazpacho is a cold condiment.
Gazpacho.
It's not a soup until it's hot. We've
I
discussed this in depth. When you judge a new codex, what type of things do you look at a codex to see if it's good or not? I ask my friends who are good at 40K if it's a good codex or not.
I watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
okay,
asked my
what do the
team.
guys at Tabletop Titans have to say about this codex?
I
Okay.
asked my team. Seriously, a few things I like combos. That is actually one thing I do look for is combos. I look for combos, specifically that revolve around like warlords, relic stacking, and stuff like that, like psychic powers and stratagems. Looking for combos is the move. Combos are very OP in ninth edition. If your book does not have combos, or at least one combo you can build a list around, not a good book. Um, you can still play it. It might be fun, but it's not a competitive book. Combos are the secret sauce to ninth edition because of CP. CP is very important in ninth edition because you have the power to do crazy shit. So if you're not using your power to do crazy shit, what's the power of having that? So yeah, combos.
Like
Combos is the one thing I do look for, but normally I ask people who are good at the game.
like a great example of a combo is like with the Sisters Codex. 5-woman Dominion squad with the Artificer Stormbolters. One CP strat called Blessed Bolts. Roll to hit. Every hit is every hit roll of a 6. So every 6 you roll to hit is 2 mortal wounds to a maximum of 6 for 1 CP. And then the attack sequence ends. So you're like, ah, shit, you got this big like Redemptor Dreadnought in front of you. There's no way Stormbolters are going to do anything. If you're within half range, that's 4 shots. That's 20 shots. Statistically, you are going to roll 3 6s. And that is the maximum amount. That is all you need is 3 6s to do 6 mortal wounds for 1 CP. That is bonkers. So,
Yeah.
like, that's a combo that I love. And it's simple and easy for me to understand. It's not like, okay, you have to have your librarian in here and he has to throw this, and then you got to get your chaplain to throw this. Like, there's all Auspex Tactics talks about like, oh, and here's the potential to create an unkillable 1-up, 2-up save with a 3-up invul bite captain, but you need like these 5 parts to make it happen. And I'm like, no.
Yes. Yeah, combos are it. That's one of my favorite things to research in a codex. I love learning about new combos and tricks and how to stack units to be extremely effective. I love that shit. Ooh, new meta with a really good one.
And Greenskin says that they are your first patron.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you. Mine? Are you talking to me, Greenskins?
Yes, Greenskin says I am the sauce's first patron in all caps.
Oh, yes. Dude, I know. Well, we talked a lot because I am dumb at Patreon, still am. But I could not figure out the video issue over there. It took me forever. So thank you, Greenskins. I appreciate you. The OG, the real first one. I appreciate that. New meta. We heard a lot about top content, what they do, what they did right and wrong, what the sauce would do, and how to optimize viewership on social media avenues. But what's the end goal for the sauce in the end? So 2 things. This is a good question, new meta.
That is a really good question.
Yeah, didn't you say there was no good questions in chat?
The time when I said that, that obviously has changed since I said that sentence. They were waiting. They're like, okay, we're just gonna put dumb food questions, and now we're gonna ask the real deep thoughts.
The deep ones. Okay, my end goal is 2 things. The first one is to make content that I am passionate about. That is really my end goal. I suppose it's a little bit bigger than that because it's like no, I would say that that's my end goal is to create content I'm passionate about. So I have done content for many years. The Sauce is my 3rd YouTube project. From all of them have different backgrounds. I did I had a golf channel previously. And so like I have explored different content ideas. So my end goal is to make content that I am passionate about. My other end goal, is to try to grow the ceiling of Warhammer, which is a very, very big, ambitious goal. But I want to get new people to watch my channel and then say, like, I would love content that people are like, this is crazy. What the fuck is Warhammer? You know what I mean? Like, or people to be like, hey, I've seen your other content that is outside of your Warhammer niche. So what is this game that you play? Right? Like one of my end goal is to make Warhammer bigger, to like get more people into it, for more people to be exposed to Warhammer content. Because I think that there's amazing creators in this space that we are all victims of a very niche, low ceiling corner of the internet. And to get more people to see Warhammer and know that, okay, this channel has a Warhammer corner, but like it also explores things like photography, videography, or whatever other topics I want to get into, is kind of one of my end goals. I want to make the space better for all creators in this space. And hopefully people see that through my harsh critical opinions on everything, but that really is one of my end goals, is to get more people to understand and see that Warhammer is a legitimate awesome place to make content, is typically a pretty cool community. um yeah. So but the core of that, the end goal for me, is making content I'm passionate about and creating a brand that allows me to go to different to diversify what that means over time. And I do feel a little bit cornered with the name TheSaucePainting, to be honest, but I have ideas for that in the future.
Sauce multinational media conglomerate
Hmm.
LLC.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Hey,
What's your policy on Harry's? Horus Heresy. Two things. If you're asking about the models, my policy is buy them from China, fuck Forge World. And my other policy is that Logar did nothing wrong. So those are my policies on that. Um,
what's up, Cephalopod Studios? He's repping his paint line at his very first convention this weekend. So best of luck, my dude. I know you're gonna kill it.
mhm, mhm,
Can
mhm.
the sauce do a critical analysis of Doc's stream? And 8 Pointed Star says, once you reach 10,000 subs on YouTube, will you contact GW so you can shill for them to increase the growth of the channel?
Absolutely not. I will never work exclusively or sign anything that has to do with Games Workshop. In fact, I would never accept any of their products for free because I don't want anything tied to my opinion of them. I will only buy my Warhammer products and only review that stuff because I paid for it, because I do not trust their business practices with content creators. I think that they take advantage of content creators. I think that they're shady as fuck with content creators. I don't support a lot of that end of their business whatsoever. So no, I will never reach out or work with Games Workshop regardless of the level of subscribers I have. I will indefinitely buy my own product from them and be able to say whatever the fuck I want about it.
Yeah,
And
like if the
that is
leaked
it.
NDA is to be like if everything that was from that leaked NDA is real, then it's super fucked up that by agreeing, like, you're basically hog tying yourself to like you're not allowed to say anything negative about
Hmm.
GW on your social media, on your channel, anything.
Yeah.
Which, like, for maybe a couple $100 of free product a year, that's just not worth it at all.
I think a tremendously, and in my opinion, honestly brave creator on this topic is Midwinter Minis. I think he's got a humongous voice, and I think that he's done a tremendous job being truthful, honest about some of his experiences with Games Workshop. I think that he is burning a lot of people would see it as a very important bridge, but I think that he's doing a tremendous job for the Warhammer community as creators to say like, hey, this is my experience. Like the fact that he sent Games Workshop a fucking, you owe me 200 pounds because you copyright struck my video for no reason. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but
Yeah.
Games Workshop copyright, like they hit him with a copyright strike, and they're like, "Oops, my bad." And he's like, "No, you can't my bad that. You ruined my video, and thus you ruined my income. You owe me $200, or I will take you to court over this." And I think that's tremendously brave. I think that's fantastic, and I think that that is the mentality that more creators need to have with Games Workshop, because there's so much amazing and arguably free advertising that they're getting from us, and I think that it's fair to be like, "Hey, man, what the fuck?" So huge, huge, huge respect for Midwinter Minis for that move, and just his stance on everything in general is tremendous. So I think he is the future of relationships with Games Workshop.
And
It's
what's his name?
it's a seller's market, right? And we have a lot more power than I think Games Workshop will admit or give us credit for.
And Goobertown Hobbies Dominion box review
Very good,
was
also.
great too, because he's just
Same
like,
concept.
guys, it's you're watching us open a box and say, "Ooh, these sprues look cool." What good does it do us? Because it was more less of a critique. I guess it was a critique of GW, but more specifically on their practice of, we're going to give you a thing, but we're going to give it to you in a manner that doesn't benefit anybody. You're not giving
Mhm.
us time to paint this stuff unless we spend 24 hours straight speed painting, and then it's not going to look as good as we or you would want it to. And your NDA rules means that no one's benefiting. So
Yeah. Yeah, respect to everybody who's being super critical of it. I think it's very important for moving forward for the long-term relationship that we have with Games Workshop. So that was a long answer, but no, I will not be doing that. 8. My happy kid. I tell my wife you're my friend. Sure, dude. We can even play golf at the Red Putter sometime. What's the plans for YouTube and are Instagram Reels worth doing? I mean, I could keep this answer really short. Short form video content, in my opinion, is the future of video content. I mean, TikTok has completely proven that. Every other platform is absolutely scrambling to try and even remotely compete, and they're failing. Like, Reels and YouTube Shorts are not nearly as prevalent on the short video platforms as just TikToks. So, short form video is absolutely the future of video. I think that there will always be a place for long form and YouTube videos, but if you are considering doing Reels and YouTube Shorts, do them. Watch your insights. They are being heavily pushed. Instagram wants Reels and will actively promote and push your Reels up the algorithm because it is good for their business. This has to do with time spent on the application. The more people spend, the longer people spend on an app, for example, the more their platform is worth to advertisers. So, videos pull in more advertising revenue than pictures. Instagram will long term have to become a video platform to compete or it will fail. Short form video content is the future, hands down. Like
yeah,
it's not,
and
it's yeah. Photo content will always exist. It's always a thing, right? To just be able to scroll by a video, it's cool. But short form video will replace pictures as far as content value on especially Instagram. Reels are already being ramped up the algorithm dramatically compared to pictures. Pictures to like a picture takes 1 second. To watch a reel can take from 15 to 60. And that is more time spent on the app, which means their advertisements are worth more money. It's all about money. It is all about money to Instagram, to YouTube, to TikTok. It is all their business. It's all about money. The longer people stay on the platform, the more it's worth. Short form is the future, especially on Instagram.
yeah, and speaking of short form, my reel that I did, the like all it was a 360 of pre-grimed one of my custodies, some text on it playing the trooper from Iron Maiden. That one did okay as a reel. That one, like, it started to peak around like 3,000 views, which was okay. That's insane. But in the past couple of days, I don't know what caused it, but it spiked up. I'm now up to like 13,000 views, and this is my first 1,000 plus liked thing. And I don't know why, I don't know how, but it continues
Mhm.
to go up. So you're absolutely right that short form, like, and also in that same amount of time, I've gained like several hundred followers on Instagram. I don't know
Mhm.
what's happening. I don't know why
Yeah.
it's happening. And I
It's
know
because
that
of Reels.
yeah, it's reels. And I'm like, how did that one 360 do well when I've done so many 360s at the exact same angle under the exact same lighting? It's the right thing at the right time, the right model, whatever. And I like, for me personally, like, I stepped away from social media for a really long time, and I only came
Mhm.
back because you told me, dude, you're doing stuff for charity, right? Yes.
Mhm.
How do you expect to raise more money for charity if you don't have a social media presence and you get more eyes on what you're doing? I'm like, you son of a bitch. Damn it. You and your logic.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we have what do we have left? We have
A
I
bunch
have
of
to critically
RoboDog questions.
review. Yeah, RoboDog. I'll get it right after. Let me get it. Remind me at the end of the stream, and
Yeah,
I will
yeah,
grab
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um, I have to critically review your stream, and then when is the next stream? Will Sauce return to Twitch? I will. I mean, I think I can pretty comfortably and confidently say I will never return to regular streaming on Twitch ever again. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable with that statement. Um, I will not rule out a potential one-off thing, but I will never regularly stream on Twitch again. Um, it's just not in my plans for content. And it's for a lot of reasons. A lot of it has to do with what makes me happy, my own happiness, what is motivating for me. I had a ton of fun on Twitch. I don't regret any of it. But I gotta say, like I miss some of the people that I've interacted with. You know, I miss talking to chat a little bit. I miss some of the other streamers, but I can say I miss it significantly less than I thought I would. It is I am in a much better mental place. My life is much better. A lot of things around me are better when I'm not streaming, and I'm much more aware of that now, and I'm much happier. Unfortunately, for a lot of people who want me back on this platform, I'm much happier off of this platform. So I won't be regularly back to Twitch at this point ever. I really genuinely don't see it happening. So
Which doesn't mean
there's
you
that.
might not catch him in various people's chats from time to time.
Yeah, I dabble, you know, I still am, you know, I've gotten a lot busier with my real job. And so I dabble, you know, sometimes I'm working from home. So I'm able to dip in and out and watch some people, you know, there is some streamers that I still love to tune into when I can. But yeah, the reality is I'm that was it.
Yeah,
And it's just not for me for a lot of reasons. But I am the best me as a not streamer. So, and that's the most important part. It's so much of this hobby and being a creator and just life is about being the best you, and I am my best me away from this platform.
and it's
So,
I think a huge part of that is because like quarantine, like when hardcore quarantine was happening and everyone was working from home, and now we are starting to transition back into like offices and such.
mhm.
A lot of
I
people's
am back in
schedules,
my office full time in 5 weeks, by the way.
see, like people's schedules, like where you were working down in your basement anyway. So it wasn't that big of a deal for you to stream in the mornings before you started work because you didn't have to, you could just like roll over to your other computer. Whereas I mean, I'm doing that. That's my work laptop right there. It's, and I will eventually go back to the office. It's just my streaming schedule is already set up for the evenings. And it's on
Mhm.
certain days a week that my wife and I were already like, long term, this is something we're both okay with. Lots of folks, maybe for different reasons, but folks like yourself were quarantine streamers. And then for
Yes.
various reasons, they had to stop. So we've already lost a ton of incredible content creators. And I mean, that's just the way it is. Also, people's numbers are going down. Like their viewing numbers are
Yeah.
going down.
It's a bear market, man. The Twitch is a bear market right now, and I mean, to really circle back and go deep on something, there is literally no time like the present to get innovative and creative with how you stream and what you stream and why you stream because the share of the audience is getting smaller and holding people's attention is harder because people have less time. And there is literally no time like the present to just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks because what's the worst that's going to happen? Like you've already got your diehards; they're not going anywhere. They're going to continue to watch you, but there is a falling ceiling on Twitch right now, and I think that no time like the present to break it up, see what's out there, and try something new.
Like
I think
doing a
it's super
D&D
important.
game for charity, like on the 30th, like at 10 a.m. Central, something like that, maybe. But Sauce, I know you said you had like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we're coming right up on that 2 hour mark. I know you have a day to get started. I don't want to keep you from that, even though, okay, I want to keep you from that. I want to make that abundantly clear, but I have to accept that I can't. So you are free to go about your day. Is there anything that you want to plug? Any videos you have coming up? Anything you want to say to chat before we end this video?
No, I mean, thanks for having me on. It was great. You know, I love these topics. I feel like we fleshed out quite a bit about, you know, the space that we're in. We got into grim dark, we got into painting style, finding happiness. We talked about content and yeah, I really, thank you for your time. It's always really fun to come on. I mean, it's good to catch up with some of you guys in chat too. Nice to see a few of you guys, and definitely miss some of you guys as well. And so, yeah, this was good. It was fun. It's always a great time to catch up, man.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
really it. As far as what's to come from me, I'm just wrapping up. I mean, like I said earlier, I had really been leaning and talking, especially to my wife. My wife is my big sounding board for ideas, for how I feel for things. She's very, very in tune with me emotionally, business wise, understands my goals and perspectives. And, for a couple weeks, I was very like, I need to get these army flips done. I need to get the commission on my plate done so that I can really just focus on me and the stuff that I want to make. Because that's what makes me happy, right? Like army flips and commissions for me is easy money, to be honest. It is easy money and it's nice to make easy money. But it doesn't make me happy anymore. Well, it does. Money does make me happy. I'll be honest. But it's more important to focus on what makes me happy. And so for a couple weeks, I've really been talking a lot to my wife. Like, I just need to get this done so I can just do me, focus on YouTube, focus on, creating great video content, focus on photography and all sorts of other stuff that I love to do. And then I had that video just completely pop off on YouTube, like over the last couple weeks. My YouTube channel has almost doubled. Well, yeah, it's more than doubled in subscribers. If it keeps its pace up, it'll triple within the next couple weeks. And I was able to monetize my YouTube literally just from one video going viral that was 9 months old, just out of fucking nowhere. It blew up. And that was all the sign that I needed. I'm very much the universe will put you where you need to be person, and that if you open up and just pay attention to the signs around you, that you will see your path. Right, we can never really know our path, but the more that you allow the universe to try to show you the path, you can at least kind of walk in the right direction. And after having these thoughts, the universe opening up in this video, literally a 9-month-old video that's not even, it really was not one of my favorite videos. I don't necessarily love that video, but it blew up. um was the universe kind of really reinforcing what I was believing and feeling anyways. And so for the future for me is a lot of YouTube content. 2022 is all about YouTube for me. I will be ramping up more over the coming weeks. But for me, 2022 is YouTube. It is like YouTube. It is like go YouTube or die trying. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like that's really what I want out of the coming year, is to really give it a legitimate full blown shot. As not only a hobby, as a passion, as a side project, as a side hustle to bring in income to replace not doing commissions and stuff like that. I am all about trying to figure out more passive ways to earn money right now. And I think that commission painting and army flipping, although in my opinion, for me personally, is easy and effective, it is active time. I do not make money unless I'm actively doing it. Whereas building a brand around YouTube is something that I see much more of a long term passion, and especially financially as a side hustle. YouTube is a much better long term investment if you've got what it takes. And I am going to gamble in 2022 that I've got what it takes, and I will fail trying if I don't. And I would rather do that than spend another year grinding working on things for other people. So that's what I'm doing. And that's the future of the sauce, is basically video content on YouTube.
Well, one person's opinion, and I'm sure everyone in chat has been saying it as well. Uh, we know you can do it, dude. You've got the technical chops to make high quality content. You've got the drive to create something innovative and unique. You have the capacity to do that, and you have the talent to do that. So I
Well, thank you.
anticipate, like all of us, like guys, you want to get in on the ground floor of something incredible. All you have to do is exclamation point sauce and then just go click that follow button and that subscribe button over on his Instagram and his YouTube channels, because you'll be able to be one of those people that can say like, "Oh, you think the sauce is cool? Oh, you started, you're a big fan of the sauce. I was following him from the very beginning. I was in
It's a
on the
ground
ground
floor
floor."
investment opportunity.
Exactly. Like you
Yeah.
want to get a like a non like 0 point something percentage of this business. You do it now. You invest your follow, your subscribe right now, because he's only going
Yeah.
to go up. And we're going to be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, did you
I
know
mean,
that I had a conversation with the sauce?" No way, man. Here's the video.
that's Thank you. That's very nice. I'm always the last person to agree with anything like that. I just have such bad imposter syndrome. I think a lot of content creators do. But yeah, I've been working on my imposter syndrome quite a bit. But it's just I just thank you. It's always just weird to like get compliments or hear things or people be like, dude, you could do this, we believe it. It's just fuck it. Like I I I cannot move past those comments. Like I just can't. I'm just one of those people that can't accept those things. Like I've literally talked to therapists about this, but um thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah.
So on that wonderful note, everyone, I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop recording and we can let Sauce go. We can have a follow up chat, you and I. But thank you everyone for catching this live. Bear in mind that you will not be able to catch this YouTube video for a month because it will be exclusive to my patrons for 1 month, and then it will go up on YouTube. So, because that's something that Sauce taught me to
Paywall everything.
yeah, paywall everything. But on that capitalist note, thank you so much, Sauce, and
Dude,
rest
thank you, man. This
assured,
was a great time.
you are part of my I always intended for you to be part of my rotation of regular guests.
Yeah,
So
anytime, man.
we will in the future be having you on again. Rest assured. So
Sweet.
chat, say good night to the Sauce or good morning, as it were, and we will see you again, buddy. Bye.
Peace.